Hello and welcome to week 2 of the NPL Minors. This week we face off against PokeTCG Gamer, or known as Rob, and his Gotham City Golurks. Pretty threatening team, as you can see. He's got the Mega Guard, Terrakion, Torrentee, Nidoqueen, Scizor, Slowbro, Hydreigon, Rotom-Mow, Golurk, Ditto, Crawdaunt, and Luxray. Facing off against my Hoopa-U, Zapdos, Mega Altaria, Dugtrio, Metagross, Decidueye, Milotic, Darmanitan, Stunfisk, Porygon 2, Mienshao, and Ambipom. So, I'll quickly go over the team I built. First mon you can see there is Dugtrio. I brought a banded set this time with Earthquake, Stone Edge, Sucker Punch, Stealth Rock. Band lets me reliably kill mons like Mega Gardevoir, Terrakion, and Nidoqueen without having to worry about their EV spreads and all that. And it just lets me deal more damage to things that aren't weak to it, like Scizor, Slowbro, and Stone Edge does more to Torrentee and Hydreigon if I want to go for that. It does more to Rotom-Mow if it's in range. I felt like Sash wasn't really the set this week since he has some pretty reliable ways to get rocks up in Nidoqueen, and I don't have great ways to defog them because his team can offensively pressure mons like Zapdos and Decidueye decently well, so I won't have that much time to defog them unless he stays in with his walls, which I don't expect him to do that much. Second mon you can see is Mega Altaria. I have a Spadef set. This is meant to, switch into and counter Hydreigon. I can take Z Flash Cannon. I can take, I believe I am 2 KO by Life Orb Flash Cannon, but it's like barely, and I can roost, if I'm not switching into it, I can roost off the damage and beat him that way if he doesn't get, multiple Spadef drops, or I can just beat him with Life Orb Recoil. And just Spadef in general does well against this team. It helps me deal a lot with Torrentee. It helps me take a lot less from Nidoqueen, so if it's in range of 2 Fire Blasts, I can just go for both of those. Spadef helps me deal with Rotom-Mow a lot better, and it also switches into Crawdaunt, regardless of its spread, pretty well. Unless it's because it's only good coverage for Mega Altaria is Ice Beam. I don't believe it gets Poison Jab, and even if it does, I just outspeed it and Hyper Voice it. But yeah, so the set on Altaria is T-Builder just closed for me real quick. Is Hyper Voice, Fire Blast, Roost, and Toxic. I have Toxic on there. I had Cotton Guard on there for a little bit. I had an agility set for a little bit, but I decided that Toxic was going to be nice for Slowbro because regardless of like the special set I run, I can't really 2 KO Slowbro even if it's like Fizz Def, unless I'm like max modest. So I kind of need Toxic to be able to beat that mon 1v1, and I decided that Slowbro would be one of his main switch-ins to this, along with Nidoqueen, but there's less I can do to Nidoqueen. I was definitely expecting a Shucka Nidoqueen this week because it deals with D-Dance Altaria very well, and it deals with non-Sash Dougie very well. So it seems like Nidoqueen will more than likely be Shucka, so it's not worth running Earthquake for it, because if I go for it, it'll be able to live 2 of them and 2 KO me with Sludge Wave, or set up a bunch of hazards and be a general nuisance, depending on its set. Third mon I have is Metagross with Grassium Z, Bullet Punch, Hidden Power Fire, Grass Knot, and Stealth Rock. I have Max Attack, Plus Attack minus Spadef Nature, I believe that's Naughty, with a spread that allows me to go for Bloom Doom on Slowbro and then kill it with Grass Knot after Leftovers recovery. So I'm hoping to lure Slowbro with that set. Unfortunately for me, it didn't actually bring Slowbro, so the set does a little bit less than I hoped it would. I guess he didn't bring Slowbro because he was fearing giving Hoopa free switch-ins, but Signal Beam does a decent amount, so it was a possible bring for sure. It could have been like a Culver Slowbro as well with decent moves to hit me. The Slowbro's attack stat isn't that bad. I could have physical moves to hit my Hoopa-U back with. But anyway, I Bullet Punch again for Mega Guard and Terrakion. I'm very scared of Terrakion setting up going into this week because I don't have much to revenge it, especially if it has Quick Attack. Like, if it's an SD Quick Attack Terrakion, like, Dougie just drops, so it'll be... So, it's nice having the Bullet Punch, you know, sort of panic button for that. In Power Fire, I'm hoping to lure Scizor with this, because he can set up, and I can't really, so I'm hoping he just tries to, like, set up SDs in my face. Or even if he goes for U-turn, I should be able to outspeed him. I have a decent amount of speed on this Metagross, so if he's trying to speed creep me, I'm hoping that I can speed creep him back, and be able to get off a lot of damage within Power Fire. Then Rocks, because I need Rocks, so... And this was one of the better rockers I could bring. Other one being Dugtrio, but since it's a choice band set, not really a reliable rocker at all. And fourth mon on this is Zapdos. I have the Charty Berry. Again, they're for the Terrakion. A lot of this team is just trying to get Terrakion not to set up, because if it sets up an SD, it just decimates a lot of my team. So, got the Charty Berry on the Spadef set. This set is meant for Nidoqueen. It's definitely going to be my Nidoqueen counter. It's also useful for... My computer's being slow right now, not loading the team. Also useful for Mega Gardevoir. I'll be able to slow Volt Switch out of there. For Hydreigon, I'll be able to slow Volt Switch out of there. This mon helps me set up a situation where Hoopa-U can come in and get a big hit off on something. I'm slower than most of his mons. Obviously not slower than Nidoqueen, but I am packing Volt Switch Extrasensory Roost into Fog, so I'll be able to Extrasensory Nidoqueen if it tries to come in on me and tries to scare me out with the Modest set. I can take a Modest Life Orb Ice Beam pretty well and to a KO with Extrasensory. Fifth mon on here is Hoopa Unbound. I am a physical set, I'm adamant, and I have a Citrus Berry, which kind of an interesting reason I brought that. I'm hoping to lure some of his priority users with this, like Scizor or Crawdaunt are the main ones, and like maybe come in on a low Scizor. As it goes for Bullet Punch, I eat the Citrus Berry, I go for Fire Punch and steal its item, so I'll be able to get a Choice Band, Life Orb, decent amount of good items I could get from that, you know. And if he doesn't go for Bullet Punch, then I just kill it with Fire Punch. So obviously a threat to the set is Akka Scizor, so I'll have to scout for that. But I am packing Fire Punch, Drain Punch, Hyperspace Fury, Zen Headbutt, so I have coverage to hit all this team either neutrally with stabs or super effectively. So hopefully Hoopa can put in the work this time. It's kind of an interesting set. I don't know how good this set was in retrospect, but Citrus is kind of interesting because it allows me to take a priority move, eat the Citrus, and then take another priority move. So sort of some reasoning behind that. I am EV'd. Also of note, I am EV'd to take a banded Scizor Bullet Punch after Rocks. So that's what the EVs are on that. And then the rest just in speed. To speed creep any Nidoqueens that want to play games with, you know, defensive Zapdos and stuff like that. And 6th mon I have on here is Colberberry Decidueye. This is meant to bait Hydra. I set up a light screen. Well, set is light screen, roost, U-turn, leaf blade. So I'll be able to set up to take a Dark Pulse from Hydra, set up a light screen, and then U-turn either when he switches out or he goes for another Dark Pulse on me and go straight into the correct mon to check Hydra, namely Altaria, or Hoopa if I've determined it's set and it's a slower variant. So a pretty cool set in my opinion. A lot of his team is special attackers. Like the only real physical attackers on his team are Terrakion and Crawdaunt. And I wasn't super expecting Crawdaunt to come, but it did end up coming, so props to him for that. I guess he's a Scizor too. His team is specially oriented with Mega Gardevoir, Torrentee, Nidoqueen, Slowbro, Hydreigon, Rotom, all being special attackers, so there were definitely a lot of mons that I wanted to set up light screen for, and the light screen does help mons like Metagross and Zapdos put in more work. So there's the team. A little bit more of a defensive team this time, but I'm hoping to be able to deal with all of his threats accordingly. Hoping the Metagross set can lure some mons like Slowbro and Scizor. Well, as you can see, he didn't bring Slowbro unfortunately, so we'll have to go for Bloom Doom on something else like Nidoqueen or Terrakion. But let's get into the game. So, seeing what he brought here, he didn't bring Torn, which was decently expected. I played a mock where my opponent did bring Torn, which sort of skewed my prep towards prepping for Torn. So that didn't really play out in my favor because, you know, he didn't bring Torn. At first I didn't think he would bring Torn because I have Stunfisk and Zapdos and Milotic, some of the best switch-ins to Torn in draft format, so Torn didn't have a great matchup going in, but I heard some pretty decent reasoning why it should be able to come. Like, it does outspeed my entire team and can hit a lot of it with super effective stab or just super effective moves in general. So I decided to lead Decidueye. I'm hoping to catch either the guard or the Hydreigon lead. I don't expect him to lead something that gets reliably trapped by Dugtrio, because Dugtrio is a pretty tempting lead, especially like a Sash Dugtrio. Might be expecting that, so I lead Decidueye, hoping to catch either guard or Hydreigon. Hydreigon for Sash Dugtrio, guard for the likely Hoopa or a non-banded, non-Sash Dougie lead. So, let's get the volume off. So he leads guard, and I lead Decidueye. So we got the lead matchup right, which is great for me. I can just go for the U-turn here because I'm max speed F. I can easily take Hyper Voice. Luckily for me, it goes into Hydreigon, and I get some super effective damage off on it. So I go straight into Altaria, which lets me fire off a Hyper Voice. I'll see what his switch into this is, and see if this is a more defensively oriented Nidoqueen set. So from that damage, I can tell that he's max HP. So he's likely not an offensive variant. So I can safely switch into Zapdos here. I'm not going to be too KO'd by Ice Beam. So just go straight into Zapdos as he goes for rocks, so I can just reliably defog these away. Which, unfortunately for me, he does have Super Fang, which means, like, no matter what, when I try to kill this Nidoqueen, it's always going to be putting me at 50% or lower. So even though I'm EV'd to take it on, if it was a special, like, sheer force set with Ice Beam, I'll end up taking more damage at the end of the day. So that's a bit unfortunate there. I just go for Roost and defog, so he goes for rocks. I win this eventually because, you know, he does have Super Fang, which means, like, no matter what, when I try to kill this Nidoqueen, it's always going to be putting me at 50% or lower. So even though I'm EV'd to take it on, if it was a special, like, sheer force set with Ice Beam, I'll end up taking more damage at the end of the day. So that's a bit unfortunate there. I just go for Roost and defog, so he goes for rocks. he has to end up predicting me, but I don't have to predict him because I outspeed. So he's in a position where he's forced to either switch or just waste his time. At any point on any turn where he goes for rocks, I could just go for extra sensory and then defog the next turn. So he just goes for a couple turns of this play out where I just make the safest play as possible. He goes for Earth Power. Stab Earth Power is doing less than 50, which is really nice. Max Zapdos is pretty cool mon. So goes into Gardevoir on my extra sensory. I know I can eat a non-modest Hyper Voice, so I just stay in. I easily take that and go for the Roost. So he switches back out, go for another Roost, and I know I can take Hydreigon's hits as well, so I just get a slow Volt Switch out. But unfortunately for me, he does have Toxics, which signals to me that he's a defensive set because he also has leftovers. And defensive set is going to be a huge pain to Metagross in general because it'll be able to heal the damage from bullet punches off rather than taking damage from Life Orb. So I'm not going to be able to reliably damage it with most of my mons. So I'm not a huge fan of that. Luckily I still do have the Altaria, which can counter it, but you know, I do kind of, you know, lose to this if Altaria goes down because it can 1v1 much of the rest of my team, depending on its set. If it has U-turn, then it just takes out Hoopa. So we're gonna go into Altaria here, fire off another Hyper Voice, or unless I predict Scizor, I could go for Fire Blast, but I just go for Hyper Voice. I decided Nidoqueen was probably coming in because he probably wants to set up more hazards and force the more passive Zapdos set back in, makes me take more toxic damage. He goes for Super Fang. I just go for extra sensory, and knowing he'll just spam rocks here, I decide not to take the extra toxic damage from clicking Defog, and I just kill him with. Well, I click Roost first as I predict him to go spam rocks as expecting Defog. So I get the free health back there, and then I kill him with extra sensory. So he goes back into Hydreigon. Unfortunately for me, he does have the taunt, so he taunts my Roost, which puts me in range of rocks. So that really sucks because then I lose my Zapdos, which is my, you know, it's supposed to be my defensive check to this Hydreigon, or one of them, and one of my defensive checks to Mega Gardevoir. As you can see, her voice was doing less than 50, but it just ends up dropping because to the taunt, so that's not good for us. But luckily we still do have the Mega Altaria, which is able to just fire off another Hyper Voice here. As it goes to Mega Guard, I predict him to want to Willow the Metagross switch in because it was super obvious. Like, the Metagross switch in was the most obvious thing in the world, so I decided that he's probably going to predict that, so I just stay right in. I know from calcing on the Zapdos that he was not an offensive Gardevoir, so I just go for the Toxic, which will be really nice for helping to whittle this Gardevoir down, because, you know, he could have Wish, and that would really be annoying because then it would just always be out of Metagross Bullet Punch range. So I go into Decidueye and on the Hyper Voice, and I'm taking less. I'm not too KO'd by it, so I just click Roost. And since I do have the Colbert Light Screen set, I'll be able to beat this Hydreigon pretty well. You can see he goes for Dark Pulse. I eat the Colbert and set up the Light Screen. So looking pretty cool for us as he's forced to switch out. He can't do a KO me, and I can just get a slow U-turn. So he goes into Scizor. I can go just straight into Hoopa. I can take whatever hits Scizor wants to go for. At this point in the game, I'm not ahead because he does have rocks up, so I can't really afford to scout for Akka. Like, Scizor was a smart play by PokeTCG Gamer because Scizor is the mon that I kind of want Decidueye in against to scout what kind of set it is. And at this point in the game, I don't want to reveal yet that Metagross has HP Fire. Because I'm hoping to, you know, be able to kill it with that, and it would be super obvious that I have HP Fire if I go into Metagross now, because normally Metagross can't touch the Scizor. So I just go out into Hoopa, which is the obvious play, because Hoopa gets Fire Punch and I outspeed, and I don't want to reveal yet that Metagross is Scarf, so I'll be able to kill Scizor late game. So going to Hoopa, I have the Citrus Bear. I can take any sort of Banded, Life Orb, whatever kind of hit it wants to go for after Rocks with my investment. So I just go for the Fire Punch, and he's Scarf. And he takes out my Hoopa Unbound, so that's really unfortunate for us, because even with the surprise factor there, Scarf is still just a really good set against me, because Bullet Punch does do a lot of work late game, you know, cleaning up Dougie and Mega Alt pretty well. Not sure about the calc on Dougie, but it does a decent amount to Mega Altaria since I don't have defense investment. So he goes into Terrakion as I just go into Metagross. It's like my last thing that can deal with this Terrakion, because I know he's likely some sort of set that isn't trapped by Dougie. So I get up my rocks on the switch out. Or actually, I decided that I can't afford to let this thing set up, because he knows that I probably can't kill him with Meteor Mash. Or he knows that I probably can't kill him with Meteor Mash. I didn't want him to set up there. I couldn't afford it, and at this point, Bloom Doom wasn't going to be used on anyone else. Like, Chronont takes a lot from Grass Knot anyway. So I decided to just go for it, and he switches in Hydreigon. So unfortunate for me, this defensive Hydreigon is just able to eat so many of my hits this game, which is really annoying. He hasn't even had to go for Roost yet, because he's taken so little damage with it, and if you look at the rest of my team, it's like really hard to deal with, because Altaria is low and burned, and at some point, Hydreigon can just take it out with Dark Pulse if it needs to. It doesn't do a lot, but at some point, I just take too much from Rocks and Burn to be able to capitalize on it. So I just go into Altaria here as he goes for Dark Pulse, and I believe I do go for Fire Blast here, trying to predict Scizor, but he decides to sack Guard, which is unfortunate for me because Fire Blast plus Toxic doesn't kill it. So I thought I looked at the damage and I thought he was going to die to Toxic this turn, but apparently I didn't look at the actual percentage, so I make a bit of a misplay and decide to go into a Mon that I thought wouldn't mind getting Will-O-Wisped too much and could take a Hyper Voice pretty easily. So I go into Decidueye, thinking, okay, he'll die to Toxic. Obviously I wasn't like paying attention enough, unfortunately, so I take the Hyper Voice pretty well. I'm thinking he'll die to Toxic and he lives on 1, so unfortunately this Decidueye, which was hopefully going to be able to get up a Roost against something like maybe the Crawdon, I could outspeed that, but nah, he unfortunately he lives on 1, so this Decidueye ends up just being a sack, and now it's a double down, so I go out into Metagross, and he's in with Scizor. since he's a Scarf set and I don't have an item anymore, since he's Scarf and I don't have an item anymore, he realizes that he can't touch this Metagross very well, so he just U-turns out. As now, I thought my thought process at the time was HP Fire was now my play, as he goes for Bug Bite or something like that. But unfortunately for me, he doesn't even have the Bug Bite. He just has U-turn, so I just end up going for HP Fire on this Hydreigon, and this Hydreigon is becoming increasingly hard to kill because my opponent is playing very tight and is not allowing Mega Altaria to heal up on anything, so it's just getting increasingly lower. And he's basically never letting Crawdaunt come in, because Crawdaunt coming in means Altaria gets a free roost, and Altaria getting a roost means that Hydreigon gets shut down more. So he makes a really nice double here, and doubles from Hydreigon into Scizor on my Altaria because it's the play I have to make. And my opponent really lost nothing from doing it. If Metagross decided to go for Bullet Punch on the Hydreigon, obviously his Scizor wouldn't have taken anything. And so, unfortunate for me, I probably should have seen that double coming, but I was sort of playing a little bit off my game, I guess. So just really solid plays by my opponent, just predicting me at every part of the game. So he's just able to take me out with Bullet Punch here. I decided that if he went for U-turn and I would switch it to my Metagross, that I decided that I would have to be able to maybe crit Stone Edge on the Hydreigon with Dougie or something like that, and then be able to clean up the game with Metagross, hopefully, was my thought process at the time. Because at this point, I'm just trying to, Bullet Punch Terrakion, Grass Knot the Crawdaunt, and HP Fire the Scizor. But Hydreigon's still the issue, so I'll need to crit Stone Edge on it or something like that. I unfortunately don't have, Sash Submission, anything like that. And Bullet Punch to put me in range of that, so I just go out into Metagross. I have nothing for this Hydreigon. It just beats the last two Mons on my team, so we do lose 4-0 to PokeTCG Gamer. Really good game to him, very well played. He really played the Hydreigon set around the Zapdos and the Altaria very well. I should have recognized earlier that Hoopa was a great switch into this defensive Hydra. But that's just sloppy play on my side, as I just switched in Altaria every time and he was able to take advantage of that with his switch-ins. Scarf Scizor was definitely really cool to see from my opponent, and yeah, props to him for that. I respect him more as a battler. Before this battle, I was thinking, man, this guy probably is one of the worst drafts in the league, but because he does have a pretty noticeable lack of speed, but in general, he's been playing really well with this draft. So, and he's now 2-0, so I'll be definitely rooting for him more as the season goes on. I think he's a very, very good battler. If I play him later in the season, though, he's going down. He's getting destroyed. So we do start off the season 0-2, which is a bit unfortunate. Both games, one was Taxi, the other one wasn't, but in both games I do believe I lost to not playing optimally, so I'll definitely have to try working on that and doing more mocks with my teams. Trying to play against the most variety of sets as possible to be able to recognize what Mons on my team can take advantage of what, and I'll be hoping to bring you guys
a streak of wins hopefully soon, because I'll definitely need them to get into playoffs. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.